Now will we see the magic?
All right, where's Murray? Okay, who is it?
This is Jesus, Kent.
Know then that it is the year 10,191.
Yes, we are bored. We're all bored now.
Hi, good night.
Good night.
Hello and welcome to Mary vs. the Movies with your host Mary Jones.
And Denis Lang.
And this week we are going overseas.
To Japan?
Why Japan?
That's overseas.
Well, I mean, yeah. No. Iceland. I mean, are there any movies in the 1980s set in Iceland other than Eric the Viking?
I don't know.
No, we're going to Scotland.
Oh, okay.
And I don't know a whole lot about this movie. So we're watching a movie. What is it called, Denis?
Walking Short.
It is not called Walking Short. I don't know why you keep saying this. It is called... Oh, God damn it. I was going to say Walking Tall. You poisoned my brain! God.
It's called Local Hero.
Local Hero. Thank you.
So I got Walking Short because I knew it wasn't called Walking Tall. And I just, it's Walking Short. And I just decided that was
okay, but like, how do you go from Local Hero to Walking Short? To Walking Tall?
I don't know. Local Hero just doesn't stick in my brain. But you've corrected me so many times now it does.
Okay. So yeah, we're watching a movie called Local Hero.
This is a comedy?
Dramedy maybe?
Dramedy?
Yeah. I kind of know what the premise is. I don't know a lot about it. It kept coming up when I was researching movies on the 1980s, and I was looking for like British films, just something to do a little different. And this one kept coming up. And I think the only thing that intrigued me about it is that Peter Capaldi is in it.
Yeah.
Very, very young Peter
like
Capaldi.
him. Yeah.
So, and that's honestly kind of the only thing that got me wanting to go watch it. But oddly enough, one of the other stars in this is Peter Riegert, who we just saw in Chilly Scenes of Winter. He's the buddy who lives at the house.
Oh, the lazy guy.
The lazy guy. Yeah.
Cool.
So I liked him very much in that.
Yeah.
And so I'm excited to see him in this.
Mm-hmm.
He is one of the main actors. That's my impression anyway. So here's what I know about this film. Okay. It is set in Scotland. It's about an American oil company who's trying to buy a town to, I don't know, essentially drill for oil. Now, obviously, the northern part of the island of Britain has a bunch of oil deposits. You've got the North Sea oil and whatnot. So, that's not that surprising. But I do find it interesting, like the idea that it's this American company coming in and trying to buy a town and just, extract the resources from it. It's sort of a reverse colonialism being set upon Scotland.
That reminds me of it. There's a movie with, what's his name? Danny DeVito, where he descends upon a town as like this kind of high-priced lawyer.
Oh, is that Other People's Money?
Maybe.
Because that's on our list.
And it has, what's his name? I think Burt Lancaster.
Well, guess who's in this movie?
Burt Lancaster?
Yeah.
Really?
Yeah.
Weird.
Maybe it's not that weird. Maybe maybe this is the type of movie he just wanted to do at the end of his life. So yeah, I believe Burt Lancaster is one of the oil execs from the United States who is there to buy up this Scottish town.
Nice.
So, I don't really know much more about this movie, to be honest. I assume something happens in it. I mean, otherwise it wouldn't be a movie.
Yeah.
But yeah, I don't know.
So you don't know anything?
No.
Is there a lady?
Probably, but I don't.
Okay.
So yeah, you might as well ask your questions.
Yeah, is there a dog?
Sure.
Yeah,
Scotland has dogs.
Yeah, Scotland has lots of dogs.
Sure. Terriers.
Is there a love triangle?
Why not?
Between a Scot and an American?
Yes.
You think? Okay.
That would fit.
Okay. Is there a death?
Is there a death? Yeah. Sure.
Okay.
Why not?
You think an older person dies, or you think someone is killed?
Maybe somebody in the... No, I don't think there's a murder.
Okay.
Doesn't strike me as the type of movie that has murders in it.
Right.
I think it's probably maybe somebody dies of a heart attack or something.
Angry dad. I mean, it's Scotland. Someone's angry.
Yeah.
But is it a dad or is it somebody else?
Scotland is sort of the Pennsylvania of Europe. So, look, I say that because I've heard that Glasgow
that, yeah.
is the Philadelphia of Europe. And so I hope there's an angry dad.
Yeah.
I don't know. Yes, let's go with that.
Is there a cool car? No.
No,
Why
it's
am I
the
even
80s.
asking?
It's no. Come on, man.
Yeah. I think that's it, right? That's all
I
the
think
questions?
that I really do. Yeah.
Do you think ends a happy ending with like the Americans finally being destroyed?
No.
No.
Look. Oh, a British dramedy from the 1980s? I'm sure this will be devastating somehow.
Yeah.
This will have a very sad ending. Like every movie of that type that we've seen has had something like kind of a bummer ending in some way.
Yeah.
You know? I mean, the only thing that would give me a worse vibe is Bob Hoskins was in this.
Oh no.
And I say that like the movies we've covered with him in it are great. I love
Yeah.
them. But those are not happy
In
endings.
fact, one we just covered, or one we just watched that we haven't covered, Brazil.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's true. That's
It's not quite a happy ending.
Not at all. So yeah, I don't really have much more to say. How about you?
No, I know nothing about this. We'll
Walking
see.
in blind.
Yep.
Shall we?
Yeah, sure.
All right.
Now all the streets are dark and bare. Oh, if you can live in this town and stick around, you can live anywhere. That's the way it always starts. Sitting here and waiting on the beating.
You know, sometimes we pick a movie and it's actually a bit random. You know, sometimes it's something that I wanted to see and never got around to, something Denis thinks I should see and never got around to. Sometimes people make requests, which is kind of fun. I don't always get around to them, and not intentionally. I mean, if you have suggested a film and I haven't done it yet, please send it to me again, because I need to put it on I have a big long spreadsheet. But Local Hero was just something that was sitting on a list, and I'd never heard of this film. I said, yeah, what the hell? It's got Peter Capaldi in it, and
Yeah.
big Doctor Who fan. I didn't like those seasons, but not because of him, but because I have a thing about Stephen Moffat and Moffat's terrible writing. I hate Stephen Moffat, but
Yeah, and as he went on, it got worse, it seemed
yeah, absolutely. But that was not Capaldi's fault, and I liked
No.
his take on the Doctor.
Yeah.
So, but of course, you know, I watched The Thick of It and In the Loop and whatnot, and he is great in that. So, like, I don't know, I'm always kind of happy when I see him pop up in things. And this is an early film. I don't know, this might be his first movie? I'm not sure.
Yeah, it seemed very early.
Yeah.
I think it's before...
Lair of the White Worm?
yeah.
Oh, it is. Lair of the White Worm is like 89 maybe.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, so this is much earlier.
And we saw Burt Lancaster.
In a couple of films.
I'm sorry. I'm from Pennsylvania. Burt Lancaster.
God. Oh, that's awful.
In Atlantic City.
Atlantic City and Field of Dreams.
Yeah. This film, there's a ton of films after this that are like this.
Yeah.
But this movie kind of...
Predates all that?
It predates all that, but also it takes every cliche and avoids them. Like it
Yeah.
just immediately turns left.
It's such an interesting film in a way that I was not expecting.
Yep.
You know, the premise is Peter Riegert plays a guy named McIntyre.
Yep.
Which, as he explains, is not his family's original name. They're from Eastern Europe, but, you know,
Yeah.
they came over here and changed their name. He works for an oil company in Houston, because where else would you work for one? And he has been charged with getting a Scottish village to basically sell itself off so they can have an oil refinery. You know, you expect it's going to be one kind of film, and it turns out to be a completely different kind of film.
Yeah.
And yet, as you say, you know, we've seen versions of this story afterwards.
Yeah. I mean, like Waking the Divine.
Yeah.
And
It was apparently a big influence on Northern Exposure,
yeah.
which, I mean, is a show I love.
And you could see that. It's,
Oh, yeah.
It's very much that.
Yeah. But this is way before all. This is like 1983. I can't think of a movie before this that feels like this.
Well, he was inspired by a movie called...
Oh, Whiskey Galore?
Well, there's Whiskey Galore, but there's also another Powell and Pressburger movie called I Know Where I'm Going.
Right. Okay. So that's actually where I'm going with this. This doesn't feel like a Hollywood movie from the 1980s. It doesn't even feel like necessarily a British movie from the 1970s. This feels much older.
Yeah.
This feels like a very old-fashioned kind of film.
At the same time, it has some amazing cinematography and like just these really cool shots of the sky and
But that's Powell and Pressburger right there with cinematography and color and lighting and the way things, just the general things, the way they look.
Yeah. I mean, like them just driving through the country, that's, we've seen that. I mean, it's American Werewolf in London. That's
With Nail and I.
With Nail, yeah.
Yeah.
Just looks like that. But then when they're at the beach and they're looking at the stars and
the thing is, there are times where I'm sure what we're seeing is animated. There's a meteor shower in here, and obviously the Northern Lights was animated. But there's also scenes just on the beach at like sunset or sunrise or whatever where the lighting is so gorgeous. And I have a feeling like some of that has to be natural just because of the way everything is shaded and stuff. And, they weren't really using CGI in those days, certainly not in a film like this. They were able to capture just such beautiful light. That's intentional, not just because it's a film and people want their films to look good. This is an environmental film in a way that I wasn't really expecting. Because, it's about we're going to buy up this, cute little village and turn it into an oil refinery. Isn't that horrible? And the film is saying, this is an ecological disaster. But the way that it changes this guy's view through just sheer wonder and beauty at the world and the people in it, it's interesting because it's a very gentle film. It kind of goes backwards to these other films between 30 and 40 years earlier, right? It's a very subtle movie.
Yeah.
Which is weird to say because there's things in it that are not subtle at all, but in a whimsical way, right? And it's not whimsy in the way that you roll your eyes necessarily. It's, I don't know, there's something so balanced about this movie that I was really shocked. Again, I just picked this kind of randomly. Didn't know anything about it. I love this film. This film is amazing.
yeah.
It's really maybe one of the most beautiful films we've covered, certainly since maybe Paris, Texas. Not that it doesn't have the same mood as Paris, Texas,
Yeah, it's
but
not the poetic,
no,
whatever
it's
that
a very
is.
different type of poetry.
Yeah.
Because Paris, Texas is, it's Wim Wenders and Sam Shepard, mashing against each other and dealing with American myth and whatnot, and the West and all this other stuff, and brothers at each other's throats and whatnot. Well, not exactly at each other's throats, but you know what I mean. It's that's a different thing. That's a very American film. This is like an odd fairy tale, right? Down to the point where we have maybe a Selkie or mermaid.
Yeah.
I mean, that's fascinating to me. It is subtle. It is magical realism. And I don't know. It just, what a gorgeous movie. As I said, Peter Riegert plays this guy, Mac, who he lives in Houston. And
By the way, very first shot, cool car.
was not expecting it.
A Porsche 930, as he says.
He drives a sports car. He works for this, oil company. He's a yuppie. He's got plenty of money. But he obviously lives this kind of, solitary life.
He's like a more bored Paul Reiser.
Yeah, I like that. And he is tasked by the boss, who played by Burt Lancaster, that he has to go to Scotland to convince these people to sell their land.
No, the company is telling him that, but he gets called up to meet the boss, and the boss is
insane
out there.
Yeah.
He's like, you have to find Virgo and find this comet and name it after me.
Right. So yeah, the owner of this company, what's his name? Happer.
Yeah.
He is mercurial. He is.
He's like a wackier character from season 2 of Twin Peaks.
Yeah.
Like it's like too wacky for Lynch, but
yeah, there's definitely something wacky, and because this is the type of film it is, it's not sinister. He's kind of the fun version of a Mad King.
yeah.
The company wants to do this deal to set up this oil refinery because, of course, you have all that oil in the North Sea, and he's more obsessed with astronomy and finding a comet and getting it named after him. Like, he wants this deal done and everything, but he's like way more focused on this whole other project. And you got to look at the sky while you're there. You got to like look for things, because he's very obsessed with astronomy and the stars and finding something that nobody has found yet. In his case, he wants a comet.
Yeah.
Mac, he's not a people person. He doesn't want to go in person to Scotland to talk to these people. He's just like, can't I just do this over the phone? I'm really good at
telex. He keeps saying telex or something. Yeah.
Right. You know, you get the feeling like if he could do everything through email, he would do it through email.
And in fact, the way he interacts with people through the office is he knocks on the window and then calls them and talks to them through the window. And he even like tries to get a date with a girl that way.
Yeah, he has a really interesting kind of social anxiety.
Yeah.
Where he just does not want to be in the same room with other people.
Mm-hmm.
And it's one of those things where it took me a minute to pick up on what was going on with him. So the fact that he's being forced to fly to another country and convince these people to sell their town, this is not what he wants.
And we've seen this character time and again, like the yuppie who discovers a soul by going to the land or something.
Well, yeah, I mean, this is, the other movie that reminded me of was Brigadoon.
Mm-hmm.
And I mean, a lot of people apparently have made that comparison, but the story of Brigadoon is Gene Kelly is an American, it's post-war America. He goes to Scotland on a hunting trip and finds a village that like magically reappears every 100 years. And he falls in love with a woman there, and he falls in love with the village, but you get to like after that like day that it's there, you have to kind of leave, or else you're going to be trapped in Brigadoon forever. And in that story,
and that's Sid Charisse. Right?
Yeah, it is Sid Charisse. And
I get it.
Oh yeah,
Sid Charisse, sure.
Yeah, I'll leave behind the real world.
Yeah.
And in that film, he goes, he has this whole romance and then has to go back to the real world or the 20th century or whatever, and New York, and they actually have that happen there. Because it's a big musical, he ends up going back to Brigadoon at the end. He's just like, I don't want to deal with the modern world and, traffic and all the rest of that stuff. I'm going back to Brigadoon, right?
So I was going to talk about Whiskey Galore, which is which is a film that he screened apparently. Like while making
who
this.
Bill Forsyth?
Yeah.
Okay.
And that movie is about a town it's in during World War II, and the whiskey is run out. They're on this island.
Oh God.
And there's rationing, so they can't get whiskey.
Oh.
And a ship runs aground, and it has 50,000 bottles of whiskey on it. And so like the British officers are like, we have to guard this whiskey. And one of them is from the town, like he's in the army, or in the Navy or whatever. They eventually convince him to help them steal the whiskey and all, partly because he's courting this girl, and they say, well, you're not allowed to get married to a girl without a whiskey toast at the wedding. So like, it's all like the British officers versus the town, and the town kind of like doing shenanigans to get around them, which we see in this.
Yeah.
Sort of.
Well, yeah. So Mac goes over to the UK, and the first person he meets is like the local oil company representative, played by a very young Peter Capaldi.
Very young and horny.
Yes, very. It is kind of funny watching him just like going gaga over a marine biologist.
Yeah.
Named, of course, Marina.
Yeah.
Not a subtle film.
No.
Marina, she's beautiful. She is a swimmer. Obviously, I mean, she's a marine biologist, but she spends more time in water in this film. She's like, in a wetsuit and stuff. She's always doing deep sea diving and whatnot. Like, she even has webbed toes. So,
and we find this out right after he sees a bunch of seals, and he's like, oh, I've heard that seals can turn into people, or there's this.
Yeah, he starts talking about essentially the idea of the selkie.
Yeah.
And she's just like, no, that's not true.
Yeah.
And like, he also talks about like mermaids. And she's just like, yeah, no, that stuff is real.
Yeah.
Meanwhile, I mean, with the film basically implying she's kind of a mermaid or a selkie or something.
Yeah.
For the film, she's a magical creature.
Yeah.
Who is also a marine biologist.
But the film, the way it shows this stuff, it kind of just suggests it.
Yeah.
But doesn't just go out and just say it, or it's just like, oh, maybe she's a mermaid.
It's like if you notice that type of thing, it kind of adds this wonderful layer of fantasy to everything, but it has not, you don't have to have that in the plot, right?
Yeah.
It's like you've noticed a flavor in the stew. If you didn't notice it, it's still a good stew.
Yeah.
So she also kind of works with the researchers at the oil company, but she's under the impression that they are going to build some sort of like research center at this little village. It's a fishing village, and there's like a lot of reasons, like ecological reasons, to study the area. And so she's under the impression that that's what they're going to do, not that they're going to basically bulldoze everything and put in a big oil refinery. But so they have like kind of a romance going on. More him kind of like following her like a little puppy dog.
And waiting by the sea for her to reemerge.
It definitely heavily implies she is a Selkie of some kind.
Yeah.
Yeah. And for those of you who've never seen anything with a Selkie, you could either watch The Secret of Our Own Inish or, what was the Song of the Sea? Song of the Sea. That's another great movie. You have that going on. But Mac, he gets kind of into the town where... it doesn't sound like they have a mayor or anything.
Well, there's the guy who runs the hotel.
Right.
We soon find out he's also he's pretty much everything in the town.
Yeah, it's sort of, I don't know. It's almost like if you had a local chieftain, he would be the local chieftain.
Yeah.
I mean, it's not because it's the 20th century and whatever, but he runs the local hotel, and he's also like a town accountant, and he also just seems to be the guy who organizes everything in the town. But he's so very unassuming as a person. He's not he's not throwing his weight around as the guy in charge of town, but he just seems to be the guy who can get everything done. Mm-hmm. And so everybody just kind of, he's the guy.
Oh, and by the way, he's Wedge Antilles.
Yes, go on.
So he's Denis Lawson, who plays Wedge Antilles in Star Wars. He's the guy who survives in the X-Wing pilot that survives in Star Wars. How
long till you figured out who that was?
Anne noticed his name in the credits.
So it was after the film was done.
So Anne said, "Oh, that's," and so like I knew he was in it, but it didn't occur to me until I like read that he was Gordon. That was like, oh, I've just spent a whole movie with this guy. I didn't even realize it. So I'm used to him with a helmet and and also in Star Wars he was. They actually overdubbed him because they thought his accent was too hard to understand.
See, that's baffling to me.
I know.
Like there was also like some sort of comment that people couldn't understand Capaldi either. And honestly, I don't find Scottish accents that hard to understand. Okay, yes, do I have a subscription to BritBox and Acorn TV? Yeah. Okay, shut up. Do I listen to The Archers? Do I listen to British Shut up. That's besides the point.
For me, it does take like a half hour for me to get back into the vibe.
A half hour?
I the beginning of this movie, I'm like, I don't know what they're saying.
Really?
Yeah. So yeah, I'm not as immersed as you are.
Fair, I guess. I'm still surprised when people are like, oh, I can't understand what they're saying.
So there's a story from the set where Burt Lancaster said to Peter Capaldi, like, I really like your instincts, kid, but I can't understand a word you're saying.
Do you want to talk about the people in the village?
Yeah. So
well, there's a funny not side plot, but there's a whole thing with a Russian.
Right.
Yeah.
Like this Russian kind of comes and
he is like a Soviet. He's some sort of Soviet like sailor or something.
Yeah. But he's actually really into stocks.
Yeah.
Like he's a very capitalist Soviet. and it actually goes to Gordon to like check on his stocks. Like he says.
Yeah, because apparently Gordon is also his stockbroker on top of everything else.
Yeah. And they're trading booze and at first Mac is like, oh, one of the Russians, because we're Americans.
And it's 1983.
Yeah. And so Victor, the Russian, he keeps kind of like, he's just a gregarious, fun guy, and eventually he becomes part of the crew.
Yeah, and he's also kind of like, yeah, these people should totally get rich off of this. Yeah. He's like, he is definitely not a communist.
Yeah, like later he's like he's with Mac and Gordon trying to convince Ben to sell.
Again, this is a movie full of like wonderful little ironies of character.
Yeah, there's this punk rock girl who falls in love with Danny.
Yeah. And
at this one dance, she just keeps trying to dance with him, and he keeps trying to get away. And later, someone said, asked her like, "Why are you like following that guy?" And she's like, "Cause he's different."
Yeah.
And it was a fun little scene.
Well, I also think it's kind of useful to have somebody who's there who is Scottish, who is seen as an outsider as well, so that it's not just like these people are weird because they're Scottish. Like that's not what's going on.
Yeah,
you know,
like because when you first see her, like you just see all these like fishermen, and then you see her, and she's like completely done up like punk rock and everything, but she's actually no different than anyone else.
So Gordon, he runs the hotel with his wife. What's her name? Shelley?
Shelley actually looks like the girl that Mac was trying to get a date with before leaving.
There's definitely the hints of a love triangle here, right?
Oh, yeah. Well,
and by hints,
as in like, I wish I could take your place and you could go back to the U.S. and be me. I have a Porsche 930.
Yeah.
Nice car.
Yeah, Gordon and Shelley, they are very much in both love and lust because there's a lot of scenes of, basically they're going at it while Mac is trying to figure out what his next step is going to be. And it's always, by the way, we're very busy having sex, leave us alone.
Having the guy working on the roof, like, continue working so I don't make too much.
Drown us out.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, a lot of the film is Mac, he's there to try to get them to sell off this town. And Gordon is going to facilitate it because, to be honest, they're offering a lot of money. And these people are economically depressed.
Yeah.
I mean, it's mostly just a fishing village. They don't have a lot going on.
So while Gordon and, while Mac and I forget what Peter Capaldi's character was. Danny. Well, they're kind of wandering around, bumbling and being weird, like dressed up in suits, walking on the beach,
like Nixon.
Yeah, the whole town meets at a church, and then they go to see the church, and you find this is where we find out like basically the whole town is just following Gordon's lead. First, you're like, oh no, like
is he a cult leader? Is
this or something like that?
Is this like the Wicker Man?
Yeah,
I mean,
and it does have some.
It does have
vibes.
a few Wicker Man vibes, to be honest.
But as you said, it turns out everyone is totally psyched to sell out. They're like, yeah, we don't care. Yeah, to buy all our buildings, we'll just go to Edinburgh and be rich.
Yeah,
and
it's not what I was expecting at all. You think it's going to be this movie about the town fighting against the evil developers? Because I've seen that film before.
Yeah,
you see that all the time, and it turns out these people are like, yeah, it sucks being poor and like not be like having anything and being far from everybody. Sell out. Come on, give me the money.
Yeah. And so like they probably would sell out right away, but Gordon is like, well, no, we have to play the long game and try to, milk it for all it's worth.
Right, because
you try not to be too eager.
Exactly, because otherwise you're going to get ripped off.
Yeah.
It's like if we're going to actually destroy this town, give us something real for it.
Before he goes there, like, when Mac is in America, he says, yeah, we're just going to offer $160 million for it. And the very first offer is $20 million.
Yeah.
But that's what Gordon says. Like, are you thinking $20 million? I say, yeah, $20 million is a number. Yeah.
They're trying to figure out how to milk this oil company for as much as possible, while Mac is slowly deciding, I don't think I want to break up this town.
Yeah.
Yeah, what am I going to do here? But he kind of knows he has to go through with it or else he's out of a job. The people eventually are like, kind of get what they want. They find out just they're going to get like a lot of money. But it's interesting watching him
think they're going to get
they're going to get it. There's a holdout.
Yeah.
What I wasn't expecting was he is so won over by the existence of this town and the fact that this is like a community, which is the thing that he doesn't have. He doesn't have, like, we don't get the feeling that he has a lot of friends at home. Mm-hmm. He doesn't have a girlfriend. He just has his job and his money. He doesn't have anything. This is a guy finding a community, and what the community is, they're fine with him and all.
Yeah.
And what I find interesting, like, again, this is not what I was expecting because they're not fighting to save their own community. They've had that. They're not as enamored with the whole thing.
Yeah.
So, there is something very funny and ironic about all of this, right? Mm-hmm. But, the way that he starts kind of dragging his feet a bit and isn't even sure, like, what he's going through with. Meanwhile, you have Danny falling in love with Marina, who is like, yeah, you're basically just going to turn this into a disaster.
Well, actually, she doesn't know that they're like...
Well, she does by the end.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think Danny tells her...
Yeah.
but then
That's
curveball.
there's a curveball.
Yeah.
So the first curveball is you've got a guy who what's his name, Ben, who lives in a shack on the beach, and it turns out you could go and buy this entire town. You could easily spend all of that, either 20 million or 160 million, whatever, and it doesn't matter because Ben owns the actual beach, and has been in his family for like 400 years. It was gifted to them by the Lord of the Isles, and he doesn't want to sell up. And he does this. There's a great scene where Mac is like, you know, what is it going to take for me to sell this to you? And he picks up a handful of sand. What does he say? He wants like a
pound for every grain of sand that's in my hand.
Right. And of course, you know, Mac is just like, oh my God, that's astronomical. I can't imagine what that's going to be. It turns out it'd be about $10,000.
Yeah.
It's really not that much.
Yeah.
He doesn't have any concept of like what the natural world is like.
Mm-hmm.
He can't answer a riddle like that. Again, this film is interesting because it's all Mac just kind of like suddenly being thrust into a natural situation, the natural world. You know, there are a lot of scenes of him just picking up shells off the beach constantly and just like collecting all of these, you know, pieces of shells and whatnot coming up, and like as if he's never seen these things before, right? He's suddenly immersed in this other world. You know, again, there's these beautiful shots of meteor showers happening overhead, and he's stunned. He's never seen a meteor shower before. To be fair, a lot of people who live in cities have never seen a meteor shower.
Right.
Have you?
Yes.
Yeah.
Nick and I.
Nice.
Yeah.
Nice. But like, you know, you and I, we go camping, we go out, and so like, you know, I've seen meteor showers and stuff, and they are stunning. Don't get me wrong. There was one night I was out back in our yard here, and there was a fireball flew right overhead. You know, I was outside. It was night. I like to go out and go stargazing. You know, it's pretty dark where we live, dark for the suburbs, and this fireball, and I call it that because like, I've never seen anything quite so bright. Flew right overhead, you know, in the direction of Philadelphia. And
that was probably the last of Elon's car.
Yeah. Good. I'm glad. So, no, but it was a stunning moment, you know, just because I've seen meteors before, but I never saw a fireball. And a fireball is just that it's much closer to the Earth, and it's very bright, and it moves a little slower than you expect, you know, as it's coming to Earth. There was no sonic boom. There wasn't, you know, anything like that, but it was just a really stunning moment. So like, yeah, when you see those things and because you don't see them every day, it is stunning. It is beautiful. And the same thing there, you know, he goes outside, he sees the Northern Lights, and it's this incredible thing. And, you know, he keeps having to call back to Houston. So there's these wonderful conversations with him stuck in a phone booth because it's the only phone in town. Stuck in this red phone booth calling back to Houston and trying to
putting pennies in.
Yes. Trying to explain, you know, like what he's seeing there and how things are going. And because
of course he still doesn't know where Virgo is.
But the thing is, because he's describing these like astronomical phenomenon, that's the thing that kind of throws in the next curveball. So you've got Ben who doesn't want to sell. And then you've got the crazy boss, played by Burt Lancaster, and now all of a sudden he's hearing like, you know, that the sky is incredible there. All of these things kind of conspire to have Happer, Burt Lancaster, fly over to Scotland to finish the deal.
Just in time to keep the townspeople from like tearing Ben limb from limb.
Yeah, it's a very much a Deus Ex Machina
that
happens here, where Happer decides to fly over and take over the negotiations. And he goes in to talk with Ben on the beach and offer him, you know, whatever he, you know, because Mac he offers him like, do you want beachfront property in Hawaii? Like, we can afford that. We can get you a beach anywhere. We just need to have this beach. And Ben doesn't want to sell. So when Happer shows up.
So Ben, like, his story, for one thing, his last name is Knox, which is the same name as the company.
Yeah.
So, and they just say that. They don't even make a connection or anything. They just say it. You know?
Well, no, I mean, Mac is sort of surprised by that. Yeah. So, yeah, you have this kind of one, you know, because this is towards the end of the film, where the town people are so angry at Ben for not selling up so that they can all be rich, that they are marching on the beach towards him, just as a helicopter descends. Again, this is again Deus Ex Machina, where he is dropped out of the sky to come in and negotiate with Ben to sell the property. But and the thing is, you're watching this, and like part of me is a little sad, right? Because I'm like, I know these people want to sell up, and okay, fine, that's their decision. But the land is going to be destroyed. This what? Even if the village is gone, fine, whatever. You're going to destroy it ecologically. So like part of me is just like, oh, that's a bummer. And then it turns out what Happer wants to do is he doesn't want to build the refinery anymore. He wants to build an astronomical observatory. Yeah. And Marina is going to get her like marine biology center or whatever. And it's just like, wait, what? It's a happy ending.
Yeah. I guess the oil refinery is out to sea. Like they are going to still build an oil refinery, but it's
right. But they're not going to do it in that spot, and so they are going to pay the villagers, insofar as they're going to be able to get the beach. But what they're doing with it is completely different. Yeah. They're not going to destroy anything, at least in that area. I mean, I guess if you're still doing deep sea drilling, it's bad.
I think they're not getting the pay. Like, I don't think they're getting.
But that's the question. Are they getting money for this?
Because later you see them talking about like, I guess we'll get jobs. We can get jobs there.
Okay, so
I think they're not actually getting the huge payout that they were initially getting.
But they might at least get more interesting jobs than scrounging as farmers or whatever. And they don't seem that mad about it. Yeah. It's like they had this moment of dreaming about being very, very rich. Yeah. And now they're like, well, we're not going to get rich, but our lives aren't going to get worse. So you think that's the end of the film. Hey, the town is saved. They might not get rich, but, their lives aren't going to get worse. In fact, they might get better, and it might be more interesting work and whatnot. That's not actually the end of the film, though. Mac has to go back to Houston. So he flies back to his apartment.
To tell all the bosses.
What's going on. Yeah. Because Happer gets to like kind of do a victory lap and like, I'm the great benefactor. I'm a different king who's come to town and, changed everything. It's like when the king shows up at the end of a play or something. Mac goes back to his real life in Houston, and it's interesting. He gets into his apartment. He starts emptying all the shells out of his pockets.
He walks by the hi-fi he was telling the Russian about.
There's really nothing for him here.
Yeah, there's this great shot. Like the inside is like, it's like this kind of nice place. But
very yuppie.
He walks out to look at the skyline of Houston. It's just this completely blue shot. Like just kind of lonely.
Blue and empty. Like there's no sky to look at, And look, I love cities. Yeah. I don't think this is meant to be an anti-city movie necessarily. What it is an anti-loneliness movie. He is so lonely at the end of this film. Like he has nothing. We mentioned earlier, he has this exchange with Gordon about his wife, and he's kind of falling in love with the wife. Yeah. Because, this is like the only time he's like talking to people. This town is the only time he's actually like been in a community, because he's stuck there for a while. We don't know how many weeks he's there, but it's not like he's just there for a day or two. As we said, all of his meetings are done through, he says, telex, so, telephone and faxing and whatever. He'd pretty much do like just email jobs if he could. He doesn't have, connection with other people. So you have that shot of him just standing there on the balcony of his apartment, looking at the city and feeling nothing. And then the very last moment is go back to the village where it's daytime, and the phone booth is ringing. Yep. So, presumably, he wants to go back to Brigadoon.
So that is a producer thing.
Okay.
Apparently, Forsyth wanted the last shot to be him on the balcony.
Really?
And then fade to black.
Really?
And the producers wanted a happier ending, and this was their compromise.
I'm not a person who needs happy endings necessarily. Like, we just went and watched Brazil. Famous downer ending.
Oh, no, he made it.
No. I don't know. I kind of like that last. It's rare that I'm an old softie, but this is one of those cases where I like at least the implication that maybe he will change his life. Now, does he end up going back to the island? Who knows? Maybe that would be a terrible idea, but at least it implies that he's going to change something. What did Forsyth think of having that ending? It was a suggestion. Was he upset about it?
I don't think he was that upset.
Okay.
But
But no, this is such a beautiful film. It's like beautiful to look at. It's all these wonderful character studies, and like I said, it reminded me of other films. Brigadoon came to mind. The Quiet Man comes to mind.
Definitely.
A lot of The Quiet Man is in there. A little bit of with that sense of like the villages and communities. Actually, a couple John Ford films come to mind. The Quiet Man, How Green Was My Valley. Again, with like the environmental aspect of it too. Coal mining does not look good in that movie, right? So I kept thinking about like John Ford films as well. I want to see the Powell and Pressburger stuff. I have to see. I Know Where I'm Going.
Yeah.
I've seen a few of their movies and they're wonderful, and but that's one I haven't watched yet.
We didn't mention Mark Knopfler.
Oh yeah, Mark Knopfler did all the music in this, and it's funny. Like I never listened to Dire Straits. Like that wasn't really my thing. So my entire knowledge of Mark Knopfler is the music for The Princess Bride. Yeah. This is very much like that, which is good. I really like it.
This was his first one, and apparently the record actually outsold the movie.
Oh wow!
It was like really successful. But,
okay.
Yeah. And there's kind of like he's actually from Scotland, and there's kind of hints of Scottish songs.
Oh, I didn't know that.
Yeah.
Okay. I don't know where I thought Dire Straits was from. Australia, Los Angeles. I don't know idea.
So of the love triangle, it's weird because it almost feels like Gordon and Stella are like, yeah, whatever. When Mac leaves, he doesn't say goodbye to Stella, and Gordon's like, yeah, go on upstairs. Like I'm sure she wants to talk to you, and he's like, no.
They almost feel, again, this feels like a fairy tale, and they almost feel like literal fairies in a way. Yeah. There's something not quite real about them. Again, this feels more like a mythical place than a real place. There's something about the character of Gordon and Stella that they don't feel quite human. Yeah. In the same way that Marina doesn't feel quite human. Mm-hmm. It all feels almost like they're touching the other world. Right. Again, it's that kind of weird magical realism type thing.
Yeah. And Mac, like, I feel like he has the same arc as Jeff Bridges in The Fisher King, in a way.
Oh, okay.
Where he changes, but by the end, it's like he changes back. Like, not as extremely as
Bridges.
Bridges.
Well, but remember at the end of The Fisher King, Bridges kind of is able to, like, his character is able to meld everything into one person.
Oh yeah, like but I'm saying that I feel like this movie ends just at the point where he starts to meld.
Okay. Yeah.
It's like it doesn't bother to show us, like him and Bear asked in the park.
Yeah.
It's like it's there if you want it, but
Right. But it does stop before that moment. Mm-hmm. But I don't know. And again, I think that's partially going back to something like Brigadoon. You know, like you Brigadoon stops right when Kelly goes back to the town. So yeah, look, this is a great movie. I'm definitely gonna have to watch it again, maybe a couple times. I don't know. Like there's just something about the mood of it and the rhythm of it. It kept defying my expectations in a way that I just was really delighted with.
Do you think Lancaster's too wacky in this?
I don't care.
Okay.
No, I'm fine with it. If anything, him being so weird, because like there's also this whole thing where he has this personal psychiatrist who is doing some sort of bizarre aversion therapy where he's constantly swearing at him, where the therapist is calling him all sorts of like names and stuff. It's very weird and silly.
It's very much like Cato in Inspector Clouseau.
It is kind of like
attack me
that.
at any point,
God, you're right.
And it ends with him having the cops shoot him off the building.
Yes.
Which I assume that happens. Who knows?
I think it's fine having all of the American stuff be a bit over the top and loud and ridiculous.
Yeah, because
it actually fits the contrast with the Scottish town where everybody is very, like, I don't even want to say reserved, but not loud, right? Yeah.
It kind of reminds me of Japanese anime when they have American characters.
Oh God!
And they're just so over the top. So,
look, we're allowed people.
I know.
We're allowed hulking, stinking people.
Yeah,
we're very silly.
There's something called Ping Pong Club.
Oh God, not Ping Pong Club.
Yeah, but the American in that is like this big blonde hulking brute who just stinks and it's just the worst. So yeah, it's like this is how the world sees us, and sometimes it's good to have that mirror on, I guess.
So that was Local Hero, starring Peter Riegert, Burt Lancaster, Peter Capaldi, Denis Lawson,
Wedge Antilles.
yes, Fulton Mackay, Jenny Seagrove, and Jennifer Black. Written and directed by Bill Forsyth.
David Putnam, I think, was the producer. He did Chariots of Fire.
Oh, right.
Got a ton of money for that. He had been trying to produce this.
Uh-huh.
And because he had a hit with Chariots of Fire, he got like 1.5 million or something to do this. So,
Oh, okay.
yeah.
Well, you, of course, can follow us on social media. We are Mary vs. Movies on all of your major platforms. We are on Instagram and TikTok. It's been a while since we did a TikTok video. I should work on that. We're on Blue Sky and Mastodon and Facebook and etc., so on and so forth. You could always go to our website, maryvsmovies.com, to find out where we are elsewhere. We are on all of your major streaming platforms where you can listen to the show. We are on Apple Podcasts where you can rate and review us. We're on Spotify. We're on YouTube. We're on pretty much anywhere. You can always get our RSS feed from our Libsyn account and just plug it into whatever your podcatcher of choice is. We have a whole other show, of course. If you sign up for the Patreon, patreon.com/MaryVSMovies to help support the show, because this does cost money. We had to rent this movie. We have to have a Zoom account. If you listen to our last episode, that's how we were able to interview Julie Klausner. This is how we do most of our interviews, is through Zoom. That costs money. Having the Libsyn account costs money. So if you want to help support us, because we are not in a network, we don't have ads, etc., this is just us doing it DIY, you can sign up at patreon.com/MaryVSMovies, and you will get access to our other show, Hollywood Avalon, where we watch Arthurian stuff, TV shows, cartoons, movies. We dealt with Rick Wakeman's King Arthur in the
on
night.
Ice.
King Arthur on Ice is the name of the movie, but also listen to the record and stuff. We if it's Arthurian, we will cover it, and that is pretty much anything from the Knights of the Round Table from 1953, very traditional, Lancelot Guinevere type story, to Apocalypse Now.
Yeah.
We just did Apocalypse Now.
MacGyver.
We did an episode of MacGyver, which is like a take on a Yankee and King Arthur's Court. We, at some point we're going to try to go through the Gargoyles TV show and figure out where to cover the Arthurian stuff in that. It's pretty much anything. So if you're into King Arthur or the Holy Grail or Morgan Le Fay or Merlin or any of that type of stuff, and you want to listen to people talk about it, that's us. So patreon.com/MaryVSMovies to listen to Hollywood Avalon. All right. I'm not sure what our next movie is going to be.
Oh.
Insofar as originally I was going to do Back to the Beach, but see, the thing is, that was for Dennis versus the Movies month, and then instead we just stuck with network. So I don't know what we're doing next. We'll figure it out. Yeah, we're just going to leave it because the episode after that we have a guest.
Oh, okay.
So, we would flip and then we would get moved off. And so, whatever we come up with next week, we come up with, it'll be fun. I don't know. But we do have a guest coming up in 2 episodes.
Cool.
When we will be covering, that Hal Hartley movie.
Unbelievable Truth?
The Unbelievable Truth, yeah.
Yay.
So
I'm excited.
that's coming up soon. And we will have a guest then, Stephen Cook. So that's going to be a lot of fun. All right. I think that just about does it. So until next time.
Did you cook my rabbit?